From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
All right, let's get rolling right into a brand new day here on the program. Glad to have you on board. Fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom. Who do you want shoulder to shoulder with you when things hit the fan? Man, you got to know. We're putting America first every single day. Let's get rolling here. Three big things for this hour. Number one, Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz says he's packing up and getting out of the state of Washington, moving his corporate headquarters to Miami. Another blue state fumble of a big prize. Number two, the FBI is warning that Iran has been looking at trying to launch drone attacks against California. That would certainly be a game changer, but not in the way they might think. And number three, I want to talk about the tale of two Americas today. One rooted in an ideology that churns out disaster, and one rooted in reality that turns out results. Reality's stubborn. It doesn't care about slogans or theories or bumper stickers. Reality is the world as it actually exists, the threats we face, the energy we need, the priorities that keep a society functioning. Ideology, on the other hand, is what happens when political movements become so convinced of their worldview that they stop paying attention to the world around them. And if you want to see that divide playing out in real time, you don't have to look too far. Just take three stories that surfaced in the same week. The first comes out of New York, where authorities say two teenagers were arrested in connection with an ISIS-inspired attack plot. Teenagers, radicalized online by ISIS propaganda, threw two homemade bombs into a crowd of anti-Muslim protesters shouting Allah Akbar, Allahu Akbar, as they did. They told police officers that it was their religion, Islam, that made them do it. Yet the mainstream media still refuses to embrace the reality that this has anything to do with Islam. Here's an example.
Is there a line anywhere right now on Capitol Hill or elsewhere in the Republican movement when it comes to anti-Muslim?
I can't speak for Mike Johnson, but I would say we've had two terrorist attacks here in the last 10 days.
What does that have to do with Muslims?
So can we condemn those? Why are we?
Of course. What does that have to do with Muslims?
What does that have to do with Muslims?
There is a radical strain of Islam that's led to these terrorist attacks. Obviously, the vast majority of Muslims are
people
peaceful.
with terroristic ideologies here and all around the world. What does that have to do with whether Muslims belong in American society as a group?
Good Lord. And later on CNN, Ana Navarro did the exact same thing, deflecting from the real reason for the attack. Here's another example.
Ironic is, so supposedly some of these comments are as a result of the attempt against Mayor Mamdani in New York, who was raised Muslim, was he not, himself? Yeah. So they're being anti-Muslim and they're finally defending Mamdani over something.
To be clear, the attack wasn't on Mayor Mamdani. It was on people protesting. It was attacking protesters, people protesting Mamdani.
Right by his house.
To frame it as an anti-Muslim attack would actually completely reverse what happened. Someone who shouted Allah Akbar threw a bomb that didn't go off at the protesters.
Republicans are finally doing something.
There it is. The left is blind. They equivocate. Oh, it was near Mayor Mamdani's house. So it was an attack on him. No, it wasn't. Like I said, the left is blind, even when it's staring them straight in the face when it's inconvenient for them. These teenagers embrace the ideology of a foreign terror group that the United States has spent decades trying to defeat. Think about that for a moment. For more than 20 years, Americans have watched their country fight Islamic extremism overseas. We fought wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. We built intelligence networks. We passed security laws. We were told the goal was simple. Keep that ideology from reaching American streets. And yet here we are in 2026 with teenagers in New York City allegedly drawn into the same radical worldview that produced attacks across Europe and the Middle East. The reality is clear. It's uncomfortable. It's dangerous. And it requires clear-eyed leadership willing to acknowledge what's actually happening. But reality often seems like an inconvenience for Democrats. Because while the real world presents us with serious challenges, security threats, geopolitical instability, economic competition, a huge amount of political energy is spent debating ideas that exist almost entirely in the realm of ideology, not in reality. Which brings us to the second story, this one from Minnesota. Lawmakers there are considering a proposal that would grant legal rights to wild rice. I can't even make that up. Yes, wild rice, a plant. The proposal would effectively allow the plant to have something like legal standing, a right to exist, potentially enforceable in court. Like I said, I can't make this up. Listen.
First, this bill applies the legal inherent rights doctrine to a plant that has been in Minnesota since long before there was a Minnesota. That doctrine does not grant any right to wild rice. Rather, it recognizes that the plant's inherent right to live exists because it is alive.
Its inherent right to exist. You've got to be kidding me. In a court of law. The symbolism here is hard to ignore, especially when you remember something else the Minnesota legislature did just a couple of years ago. In 2023, that same legislature passed sweeping laws legalizing abortion up to the point of birth, removing nearly all limits on late-term abortion in the state. No right to exist there, apparently. Minnesota Democrats refused to listen to reality when confronted with it during debate by Republican State Representative Ann New Brindley. Here's what she said.
Frankly, right now, the underlying bill language allows for abortion for any reason, via any method, at any point in pregnancy. It is the most extreme position on abortion in the entire world. Literally on the world stage with just 7 other countries. But certainly by the 3rd trimester, we do know that babies in utero can feel excruciating pain in the 3rd trimester. But there has to be a point at which some humanity kicks in for us. There has to be a point at which we can all look around and say, this is particularly disturbing. And I would just make a point that, if you did these things to a baby, just a week later, a day later, if that baby was outside of the womb and you did these things, again, a day later, not only would you be charged with murder, but that would be aggravated.
Minnesota Democrats and many across the country heard this and so much more and still chose to strip away a baby's right to life, to exist. So think about the contrast. In the span of just a couple of years, lawmakers there went from eliminating protections for human life late in pregnancy to debating whether a plant should have legal rights to exist. You can't make this up. It's not just a policy debate. It's a snapshot of ideological thinking taken to its illogical conclusion. When politics become driven entirely by theory, symbolism, and moral signaling, priorities start to invert. The boundaries between serious governance and abstract activism are completely blurred. It's a strange world, isn't it? Just to see that, to review that, and I've got more coming. Ideology or reality? The discussion continues on the Steve Gruber Show in just a moment. All right, glad to have you up with us here today. Look, when reality hits ideology and they run into each other, reality has a way of reminding us what actually matters. Reality reminds us that threats still exist, that extreme ideologies still recruit followers, that societies still depend on the hard, unglamorous infrastructure that makes modern life possible. Which brings me to a third story today, one that comes from a very different part of the country, in Texas. A major oil refinery opening its doors in a landmark $300 billion deal, all right? Here's Interior Secretary Doug Burgum with the latest.
Well, this is something that would have never happened under the Obama or Biden administrations, who are essentially anti-hydrocarbons. President Trump, with his energy dominance, which means energy abundance, which means have energy to sell to our friends and allies, and have enough of that it helps get prices down for American consumers. But this refinery announcement, it's a win. It's a win for American workers. It's a win for American consumers. It's a win for America, and it's a win for American shale producers, because this refinery, $300 billion project, is going to be tuned to handle those sweet light crudes that come from the Permian, come from the Bakken. And it's going to produce, it's going to be handling enormous amounts of throughput, and it's going to be able to put gas, diesel, jet fuel on the U.S. markets and help lower the prices. More competition in refining is great. We got lots of oil, having more competition here. So again, President Trump's energy dominance agenda in action, because all of this happened, the permitting and moving this project forward has happened in the time frame since he became president. Yeah. He's working at Trump speed to make sure we've got the infrastructure, again, for peace abroad, prosperity at home.
First time in 50 years. Congratulations to Brownsville, Texas, for having that project on its doorstep. Now, for the activists and bureaucrats who dominate so many political debates, that might sound like a relic from the past. For years, we've been told that fossil fuels are on the verge of disappearing. We're all out. That we're just one policy initiative away from a fully renewable economy powered entirely by wind turbines, solar panels, and just nonsense. Rainbows and butterflies. But reality keeps interrupting that narrative. And the states that ignore it pay the price. Here's Energy Secretary Chris Wright laying it out.
I live in red states. I'm from Texas. I see gas at like $2.50 when I'm back home. And then you hear from some people that are in California, and they say the gas is skyrocketing. Can you explain the policies that are driving that? Even though the administration is drill, get the regulations down, it seems like some of these blue states aren't feeling the relief.
They aren't. But of course, the Trump administration, we want to help every state. But it is political choices that leaders make that make energy expensive. Like one of the reasons I'm here in New York, the New England states have crazy high electricity price for one reason. They blocked a natural gas pipeline that would go from Pennsylvania through New York State and lower everyone's electricity prices and allow job creation in New England. But the politics of, sort of a climate cult was we can't have any more hydrocarbons. We can't have any more hydrocarbons. They stand in the way of stuff and just make it more expensive.
The climate cult, so right. The reality is that global energy demand continues to rise. Reality is that modern economies, from agriculture to transportation to manufacturing, still depend on oil and natural gas. Reality is that when countries restrict domestic energy production, they don't eliminate demand. In fact, it's growing, as we all know. They simply shift power to other producers around the world and become beholden to them. Refineries are not abstract political symbols. They are industrial engines. They take crude oil and turn it into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, kerosene, all of it. The energy that moves trucks across highways, powers airplanes in the sky, and keeps supply chains running smoothly. Without refineries, the modern economy doesn't run at all. And while large parts of the political establishment debate ideological questions, the language of identity, the legal standing of plants, the latest theories about society, there are still Americans focused on something much more simple: building things, designing infrastructure, producing energy, doing the work that keeps this country humming along. That's what's happening in Texas. It's a reminder that beneath the noise of ideological politics, there's still an America grounded in reality. An America that recognizes the difference between symbolism and substance. An America that understands that prosperity and security ultimately depend on tangible things: energy, industry, infrastructure, all important. Look at these three things together, and you can clearly see the divide. In New York, the reality of global extremism shows up in a disturbing way. In Minnesota, ideology pushes politics into strange and symbolic territory. And in Texas, reality wins. Through the work of building and producing the resources our country still depends on. 3 stories, 1 lesson. Reality will eventually win every argument. You can't ignore threats, but they don't disappear if you do. You can try to regulate away industries, but the world still needs what those industries produce. You can pass laws that redefine priorities, but people will still notice when the contradictions become too obvious to ignore. The question for America is whether reality will reassert itself. It always does. The question is whether voters will continue to recognize it and start voting accordingly before left-wing ideology destroys whatever's left. And that's the monologue. If you're tired of juggling powders, pills, and capsules, I understand. Longevity Wellness simplifies your routine with an all-in-one nutritional shake that supports joints, brain health, digestion, and immune function, too. It tastes great. It's easy to use, and it's built for real life. Made with great ingredients, and we use it in this house every single day. All you need to do to find out more, go to longevitywellness.co. Use the promo code Gruber for an exclusive listener discount. LongevityWellness.co, promo code Gruber. If you become a subscriber, you'll get an even better deal. Cool, right? All right, after the break, a preview of the next edition of Forgotten America, the podcast that Ivy and I launched here a few weeks ago. If you haven't been listening, it's an easy thing to do. Just go to YouTube, become a subscriber, and get the next episode of Forgotten America, a preview of what's wrong with education in America. What is wrong with education in America? We're going to go right to the rotting root of the problem after this. All right, Forgotten America. Long-form conversations, and it's been good fun. Peter Schweitzer, the best-selling author, is this week's episode, and you can find all the episodes on YouTube, right? He's talking about the invisible coup, the move by Mexican members of parliament and others to come into America to set up shop as if they own the place. They act like it. Well, this coming Monday, we're going to shift gears, because a lot of this is rooted in bad ideas. Where do these bad ideas come from? Well, they come from your local school oftentimes, if not exclusively. Alvin Louie, my guest that will drop on Monday. This is a discussion of what is wrong with the American education system that poisons children from a very young age. Listen to this.
So, in restorative justice, it says if a the perpetrator beats the victim, instead of the discipline going to the perpetrator, they both now have to sit down, and the victim now has to also understand why he did what he did. So if a trans child, if a boy who pretends to be a girl beats the brakes out of a girl, of course the school will tell the boy, hey, you can't do that. You can't be violent. Apologize. Boy goes, okay, sorry. And then the female that's gotten her nose broken in and a breaks big out of her, you also have to understand why he did that. Because as a trans child, he is marginalized. He doesn't feel accepted. This is why we need anti-bullying, be kind, and social emotional learning. So now she has to, through her black eye, understand his perspective. That's restorative justice. Now, that begins in elementary school, and this is how it begins in elementary school.
It begins early. Conditioning those that have been beat up, that somehow it was their fault for getting beat up. Again, it's a remarkable conversation with Alvin Louie. There it is right on your screen. Click the QR code. Become a subscriber on YouTube. You're going to love these episodes. Ivy and I dig deep into these conversations. Just subscribe right here, and slap the like button, and you're going to have a good time. Forgotten America. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. We dig deeper into the headlines than most because we want you to have the facts at your fingertips. And so joining me now is Rabbi Michael Barclay, frequent Torah commentator for the Jewish Journal, as well as contributor for multiple periodicals, including the Jewish Forward, the Jewish Times, the Acorn, and PJ Media, among other things. Rabbi, thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you for everything you do, Steve, you and your audience.
Yeah, we're about 12 days into this U.S.-Israel war against Iran. And some people would say that Trump started this war. I've heard people say that Trump is fighting Israel's war. I don't agree with either of those points. I was in middle school when I saw 52 Americans paraded around with blindfolds on as props for the radical regime that's been in place for 47 years. I remember watching the bodies be dug out from the embassy in Beirut and then the Marine barracks in Beirut. I remember the USS Cole in the year 2000, and the list goes on, not to mention Hezbollah, Hamas, and all the rest. Iran has been the lead sponsor of state terrorism in this world for 47 years. I think this is well overdue. I'm going to guess you might feel the same way. What are your thoughts?
I absolutely feel the same way. And I think we need to understand that for the clerics of Iran, the Shia Muslim clerics that run the regime, this is not even just a 47-year war that they've been attacking Western civilization. This is a 1,400-year war. This is not a war about land or politics or oil. It's a war about theology. And they have been dedicated to this. And so this is merely another battle in what they consider a 1,400-year war to achieve a worldwide caliphate of Sharia law at any cost.
Yeah,
this
and
is truly, it's not.
I see Islamic leaders in the United States, I've seen numerous posts, that they say they're not here in America to assimilate. They're not in the UK to assimilate, or France or Germany or anywhere in the Western world. They're here to take over and to dominate. It's a scenario they truly believe in. Just like you said, 1,400-year war. Okay, I can live with that. I mean, they believe that they're going to take over this country and all of Western civilization. And we're at a point in the conversation, set the war aside for a second. You see the number of mosques being built in Houston, Texas, and all over this country. Is this a real threat to you?
Of course it is. And I don't want to make a judgment and say, all Muslims are X, all Muslims are Y. We can only talk about the theology itself.
Understand.
And the theology itself is about creating one worldwide caliphate. It's just that simple, run by Sharia law. So if you can't do it just from external battles, you do it from internal workings by immigrating to the country. I read a Pew Research poll a few months ago that they're predicting that by 2032, the majority of Canadians will be Muslim. Well, they can vote in Sharia law if they so choose. This is a calculated war that is much longer than we generally as Americans think. We don't think in those kind of terms. We think that we're an old country at 250 years old. We're not, we're babies. And this war is much, much longer, and the theology is much longer. And if they can't do it by weapons, they'll do it by having more children. And as you make a great point, Steve, you say that they're not interested in assimilating. Our great-grandparents as Jews who came here, or anyone who came from another country, Asians, from whomever, we wanted to assimilate into the culture. They don't. They want the culture to assimilate to them. And that's another form of trying to conquer a nation.
All right, so what are the main objectives here from Operation Midnight Hammer last June to this war in the Middle East today? One of the stated purposes from President Trump is to eliminate the nuclear threat of Iran. And I want to go to what you said about Canada. I don't know if they're going to become a Muslim nation in 6 years. Maybe, maybe not. I find that hard to believe. But I look at the UK. I look at Germany. I look at France. If our concern is radical Islamic fascists having nuclear weapons, it might be closer in that list of countries I just gave you. How concerning is that as you look down, not just 6 years, but 20 years or 50 years?
Look, it's all disconcerting. As Westerners, we typically look only towards short-term goals. We're looking, okay, can we make sure that Iran has no nuclear weapons? We know they have chemical weapons. Can we make sure that they're removed? We know that they've made deals to get even more ballistic missiles from China. Can we make sure that doesn't happen? That's important. But there's a much deeper issue going on here that is not going to only be solved in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. They're looking at the world in a much bigger and longer way. And we need to be aware of what their theology is, what their goals are. We need to be really understanding of that. You need to, in a partnership, a friendship, a relationship, you need to know what your partner likes and what they love. These people have declared us enemies. We need to know why. We need to understand all that. And we need to wake up. The idea of queers for Palestine is absurd, because that same person, if they went to Palestine, would be beheaded because of Sharia law. even more absurd, Jewish queers for Palestine, even more absurd, and this is actually a group, queer rabbis for Palestine. It's insane, and we need to just wake up to what is really going on. The enemy is within in terms of these Muslims who really do want to conquer our nation from the inside out.
Yeah. Okay, so this ongoing war in Iran, we've seen cluster munitions indiscriminately targeting civilians now in Israel. Not surprising. Disappointing, but not surprising. Somebody asked me yesterday to take the over-under on another month of war. I took the over. I think that the details will take longer than the big hits. We've had, 5,000 strikes on targets between the United States and Israel so far. But I think the bigger cleanup is going to be in the details. Your thoughts?
My prediction used to be by the end of Passover, which is mid-April. I've kind of adjusted that. I think it's going to be beginning of May. I think at that point we will be done. We need to be aware that there's a lot of pressure on President Trump from inside the administration to finish this war now. They're concerned about polls, and they're saying, oh, people think that we're fighting Israel's war. We're not. Israel's the first line of defense for Western civilization. America is the last line of defense. So people are pressuring President Trump, however, and there's a big sign yesterday that things may be, they may want to try and finish this very quickly or declare victory when victory shouldn't be declared yet. Both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal were reporting about challenges with America with all this. And Steve Witkoff, whom we haven't heard anything from in 2 weeks, suddenly popped up saying, we're doing great, and I'm going to go to Israel to make war plans. And he's never really been someone making war plans. He's been someone negotiating to stay out of the war. So I think those are signs that there's a lot of pressure and infighting inside the administration, trying to pressure Trump to just declare victory and walk away, let their lot be. So we'll see where they actually end it. But I expect, my personal expectation now is somewhere in the beginning of May.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that plays out. We do need to secure those nuclear stockpiles. That's going to require somebody's boots on the ground. Maybe not an invasion of the way Americans think about it, but somebody's going to have to go get those tools of mass destruction, if you will. I'll give you 20 seconds for the last word, sir.
We need to wake up, and we need to take care of each other as human beings. It is not against any human being who happens to be Islamic. This is recognizing these are Sunni clerics. This is an authoritarian regime that even is attacking other Muslims. So we need to be aware of that as well. And we need to take care of each other, because that's really the most important thing to do to create peace in the world.
Rabbi, I greatly appreciate you being here. We'll continue to watch closely, obviously, as this continues to play out. Sir, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you again for everything that you do.
Appreciate it. We'll take a break and be right back. This is The Steve Gruber Show. All right, welcome back to the program. You know, there's not a lot you can control in this world. It's crazy week. Again, you know what you can control? What you put in your mouth. The quality of the nutrients and the supply of nutrients in the food you put in your mouth, you can control that. And I'm going to talk about something today that I think is really potentially life-changing. Whether you're 9 to 90, all points in between, Longevity Wellness makes a nutritional shake for kids in sports. Older folks want to make sure they get enough nutrition. Anybody who's on a strict dietary plan, you don't want to lose that bone and muscle, longevitywellness.co. And when I talk about putting quality ingredients in, nobody beats longevity. Joe Reek with me from Longevity Wellness. Joe, nice to see you this morning.
Hey, good morning, Steve. It's so fun being on with you guys. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm excited to be here, Steve.
I want to focus on the quality of this product because, you know, people are familiar with, you know, nutritional shakes and replacement bars that taste like, well, cardboard, frankly, and all these other things that have marginal nutritional value. And I'm being kind when I say that. Longevity is different. It's been different from the day you launched it. It's different because you put better stuff in it, correct?
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, Steve, like you said, it just tastes good. And that's actually one of the things that keeps people consistent because nobody wants to eat those cardboard bars every single day. Nobody wants to choke those down. And so that's why people love longevity, is because it's a simple, once a day, full whole body nutritional drink that you can take. You can add it with water. You can add it into milk. It comes in 3 different flavors: chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla. They all taste phenomenal, Steve. But the most important thing, like you said, is you're going to get what your body needs. And I'll tell you, Steve, I talk to customers weekly, and I love hearing how people are telling me that they're more active, that their joints aren't hurting anymore, that they don't have that brain fog, and they attribute that all to longevity.
Yeah, all right, so let's talk about 2 things. First of all, what's in it and what it does for your body. All right, let's just part 1, what's in it and why, and what it does for me physically.
Okay, so longevity is going to have 25 grams of protein. And for those who want to enjoy a more active, longer life, muscle mass is very, very important and very, very critical. So there's 25 grams of protein inside of every serving of longevity. You're also going to get 16 and a half grams of collagen. This is collagen that helps your joints, your tendons, your soft tissue repair. It helps with your hair, your skin, your nails. It keeps your skin healthy. So during the wintertime, you're not going to have the dry, cracked skin that you normally have. It's going to have probiotics for your gut health. So no longer going to have those issues with your stomach. It's going to have probiotics, prebiotics. It's also going to have 22 natural vitamins and minerals. And this is really where longevity is set apart, is we do not use anything synthetic inside of longevity. It's coming from natural, bioavailable ingredients. And I love reading what our nutritional program is made out of. It's made out of broccoli, spinach, kale, pumpkin, sweet potato, sunflower seed, maitake mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms. All of it you can read on the ingredient nutritional label, and it's all clean, healthy stuff.
All clean, healthy stuff. Nothing man-made. That's what I like about this. And look, we use it in this house every day. Nothing man-made. It's like taking the fruit and vegetable section of your grocery store and picking the best stuff and concentrating it down and putting it into longevity. That's really what it's like. So look, baseball season is getting started, which means I'll have some long days ahead myself. But for the young athletes, man, this is great. My son powers up with this stuff, and he'll take it after practice as well as a recharge, if you will. If you're older and you're concerned about calories, you know, because you're older and they want you to take a nutritional shake, take the best, take longevity. And if you're on one of those weight loss programs, I talk about this a lot of weight loss programs out there, a multi-billion-dollar industry out there. But when you lose weight, if you don't do it right, you can lose bone and muscle, and that is a bad idea. It covers all these bases, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, Steve. And like you said, those that are trying to have a healthier lifestyle, whether you're trying to gain weight or whether you're trying to lose weight, longevity supports you in your journey. You know, it is one of those things that I feel that it was divinely inspired. You know, the partner who invented longevity, he did it because his mom was diagnosed with renal failure. And while the care that she received was good, he noticed that the nutrition was lacking. And being a food scientist, he kind of used his mom as a guinea pig. And he started creating different iterations of longevity and giving it to his mom. And what he noticed was she started to have a happier, healthier life. You know, when she was first diagnosed with renal failure, she was given only 6 months to live. and through proper care, proper nutrition, they're able to get an extra 3 years out of her. And so it's that is the reason why we do what we do, because if we could help John David's mom have an additional 3 years of life, why can't we help our lives have a more fulfilling and healthy chance? And so that's why we do what we do, is to help people have a more fulfilled life.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, I'm no spring chicken anymore. I hate to admit it, but it's true. And as you get older, you need to change the way you do things. You know, for the next 30 years. I remember a song about that. More lemonade, less beer, that sort of thing. But you take care of yourself, right? And this is part of that formula to take care of yourself so that you're vibrant, you're healthy. You can play with the kids, the grandkids, run the dog, go for a walk. Your joints don't hurt. You've got the energy you want. That's what it's about. It's about having a life that thrives, not just survives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And how we age, it's really influenced more by our daily habits than our genetics. And so start your day out great with a serving of longevity. Just do that consistently once a day, and you'll notice you'll have more energy. You'll feel better. You won't have that brain fog that you normally have. Your stomach won't gurgle the way that it does. And all of this is attributed to healthy nutrition, Steve. And that's exactly what longevity does.
Yeah.
It's simple, it's easy, and it tastes amazing.
It certainly does. We love it here. Joe Reek, thank you, as always, for being here.
Of course. I love getting on here. I love helping people. And I love when customers call in saying, hey, we saw you on the Steve Gruber program, and they tell me their journey with longevity. And in fact, I talked with a gentleman this last week named Todd who had surgery, and his doctor told him, says, I don't know what you're doing, but your scars after your surgery, they are healing phenomenally and they look amazing.
There
and
you
he's
go.
like, it's because I've been taking longevity.
Find out more right now, longevitywellness.co. The promo code is Gruber. You're going to save 20%. If you become a subscriber, you're going to save even more. Longevitywellness.co. The promo code is Gruber. Trust me, we use it in this household. You should too. Joe Reek, thank you very much.
Hey, my pleasure. You guys be safe.
All right, longevitywellness.co. Promo code is Gruber. I'll be right back. Did you know that America You know, I mentioned this at the top of the program. Howard Schultz, he ran for the Democratic nomination for president back in, what was it, 2016, maybe briefly. He is the CEO of Starbucks. Well, he's bailing out on the state of Washington. He says, I'm out of here. Washington putting in one of those new billionaire taxes or wealth taxes or whatever. He began working at a place called Starbucks 1982 September. Later bought the company. Was a CEO from 1986 to 2000, then from 2008 to 2017. Interim CEO until 2023 again. But he's out, can't afford it. Starbucks also moving to Nashville. So another big loss for the high-tax blue states. See you later. Going to Tennessee, and he's moving personally to Miami. Anthony, you ever been to a Buc-ee's?
Yeah, the gas station?
Yeah. That's a lot more than a gas station, isn't it?
Yeah, you could live at those things.
Yeah, it's like an amusement park, right? They just got an F, as in fail rating, from the Better Business Bureau. Apparently, complaints go unanswered. And their customer service in question. Now, I've been to them a couple of times. I always thought the service was great, and you had, like I said, it's like an amusement park. Food, clothing, everything you can imagine under the sun, right? Remarkable place, but not doing very well when it comes to keeping the folks happy.
It's part of the experience.
Is it? Yeah. These people are complaining about their chicken, bacon, avocado ranch wrap. So disgusting, I had to throw it out the window. A complaint from February the 4th. Look, I don't know.
Sounds like they're just weak.
Just weak customers. No weak customers at Buc-ee's, all right? Get out of here. What I want to know, if I go to Buc-ee's, how good is the coffee? Our coffee's great. 1776coffee.com. That's what powers this show every day. Anthony snorts it, which is weird. I think it would burn your nose. Anyhow, good to have you here. A lot more to talk about. Serious conversations continue. Please go to YouTube. Follow us there. All the social media platforms. X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Yeah, I'm back on TikTok. Why not? The Steve Gruber Show continues for 2 more hours.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
All right, welcome back to it as we continue the conversation here on another big day. Getting close to the back end of this week. Fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom every single day, putting America first. First. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, the latest witness in the Jeffrey Epstein depositions has once again stated clearly that none of it involves President Trump, but he did name several other high-profile people that were involved taking big chunks of money. Number two, three brothers of Iraqi descent have been arrested in Norway for attempting to bomb the U.S. embassy there. This is the latest terror plot against the United States in recent days. All stems from the same ideology. And number three, a variety of big issues are before America right now, well beyond the ongoing concerns with the war in Iran. Most notably, the Save America Act. It currently has 50 Republican senators on board. It's inching closer to being up for a vote, but it will take some serious work for Senate Majority Leader John Thune to get it done. Does he have the ability? Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski left the door open for her support as well, depending on how it would be implemented in her state. Listen to this.
Where do you stand on the Save America Act? Do you, support getting this legislation passed to protect elections?
Not as it is drafted, no.
Why not?
The implementation in a rural state like Alaska is going to disenfranchise an extraordinary majority. And while I support citizenship voting and voting ID, I want to make sure that it's implementable.
Implementable. That leaves a crack open for Murkowski. Now, reporting from John Solomon, my good friend, over the last few weeks, continues to come closer and closer and closer to pointing out there has been massive intervention by a foreign power. And he whispered it a couple of times, China. It's never been about Russia, it's been about China. And the indication is, and I'm waiting for confirmation, of course, that it involved several states, maybe even Alaska. That would change some votes, wouldn't it? If you knew that China had interfered in your state, had hacked into the databases of your voters, had created fake voters, that'd probably swing your vote, wouldn't it? Something to think about, because that is what is coming down the pike. I'm telling you right now. Caroline Levitt, meantime, says the idea that women who get married cannot figure out how to vote, that's one of the Democrats' concerns, of course. Well, women can never figure out how to vote. She says that's just simply absurd. Listen.
Change their name or their address, they can still register to vote, of course. They just have to go through their state processes to update that documentation. And this is something that the American people, married women and minorities and people all across this country who Democrats are insultingly saying cannot do this, they're already doing it every day, going to the Social Security office, going to the DMV. And I think it's frankly insulting that the Democrats are saying that there are certain groups of people in this country who aren't smart enough to update their documentation to allow them to vote. Again, this is a huge myth, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to address it. Of course, and then just one.
Ladies, let me ask you. Did you get married? Have kids? Move a couple of times in your adult life? Were you still able to vote? Of course you were. You know, this whole idea that it's going to disenfranchise people. From what I understand of the SAVE Act, and I've not read it, but from what I understand quite clearly is you do not have to reprove your citizenship. If you're already a registered voter, you're good. This is going forward. This will prevent people from coming into the country and getting ballots without proving you're a citizen or a legal voter to begin with, which means you've got to be a citizen, right? It would also interfere with foreign powers that come in and create fake people that invade the databases and create identities for people that don't exist, fake voters. Not dead voters, people that never existed in the first place. Remember all those driver's licenses that were found in Chicago in 2020. The 10,000 illegal mail-in ballots found in Michigan in 2020. The truckload, the 18-wheeler full of mail-in ballots taken by the United States Postal Service from New York into Pennsylvania on Election Day 2020. It's all very important. So is the ongoing fight over border security, because this all ties together. And deporting illegal aliens, some of which, yes, in fact, vote whether they believe it or not. Senator John Kennedy filleted a leftist Cato Institute representative who claims President Trump is trying to reduce the population of America. Get this. He claims Trump's trying to reduce the population by 100 million people, by a third of us. Where this comes from, I have no idea, but you have to hear it.
Second, you said, quote, if you rule against Trump's population purge agenda, no hyperbole there, the nativists will name you, threaten you, and come after you. These judges are much braver than the ICE agents who hide behind masks while violating the Constitution.
They are much braver. They put their names on their rulings, and they stand behind their constitutional rulings. When I talk about population purge, I'm talking about the fact that they're trying to deport U.S.-born citizens, people born here. They are trying to deport them as well.
Please.
So it's not a mass deportation agenda. It is also an agenda intended to reduce the population of the United States, including U.S.-born people.
Thank
so
you.
these are not hyperbolic statements. I appreciate you reading my account. I appreciate
Here's
your
the good
research.
news.
What planet did you just, wait a minute, Mr. Chairman, what
wait.
planet did you just parachute in from?
No. Hey, guys.
You trigger my gag reflex, Mr. Beaver.
I don't think that's a compliment. You trigger my gag reflex. Good Lord. But honestly, where would the Cato Institute, we used to have guests from that organization on this program from time to time. But they are so far out there sometimes, trying to purge the population by 100 million people. Based on what exactly? And that's what he said. Purge the population by 100 million people. Yeah, okay. Sometimes people just make stuff up, wild things, and just go with it. Did you know that American homeowners nationwide have over $32 trillion in equity? Cyber criminals target it every day with a scam called house stealing by the FBI. House alarms and doorbell cameras, none of that stuff works because they're not after your TV, they're after your equity, the money you've built up in value by paying your mortgage year after year. If your title isn't being monitored, scammers can transfer the title of your home into their name using some documents they filed down at the county, and you won't even know it until those collection notices show up in your mailbox. The best way to protect yourself and your equity is with triple lock protection from my good friends at Home Title Lock. Triple lock protection, 24/7 monitoring, alerts of any changes, and God forbid, if something bad happens, restoration services up to $1 million, no out-of-pocket cost to you. You can check on your home's title today. Make sure you're not a victim. Use the promo code Gruber at HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code Gruber, HomeTitleLock.com. Get a 14-day trial. Get a 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection, all right? It's something you can do right now. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. Where is your title? Have you ever even looked? They asked me that question, and I said, I have no idea. I use Home Title Lock. You should too. I'll take a break and be right back. On this week's episode of the podcast Forgotten America, we discuss in detail education in America and how it's rotted right to the core with things like restorative justice that's introduced to children in elementary school, and then it's continually reinforced through middle school into high school, and by the time you get to college, they're fully trained, and then they're activated. As activists in this country, we've seen it time and again. My next guest knows a lot about that. Robert Bortons is the author of Woke and Weaponized, How Karl Marx Won the Battle for American Education and How We Can Win It Back. Robert, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me on, and excited to be here because if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Absolutely true, and I really appreciate you taking the time to stop in today. You're the CEO of Classical Conversations, which supports classical Christian homeschoolers in all 50 states and in 30 countries around the world. It's pretty important stuff here. People think they're just sending their kids to school. And look, I've been guilty of this. I drive by the school and I look and I think, well, I don't think this anymore. But for years I thought, well, they're teaching them the same things they taught me. It's just not true anymore. They are truly indoctrinating people, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been the plan for a while. And that was why we wrote the book, because we knew that people really wouldn't believe what we were seeing unless they saw the words of the founders of the public school system and the luminaries that set up the system that we have today, and understand that they were trying to, in their own words, merge the United States with the USSR. So they wanted to create a Marxist, collectivist worldview in our students, and they wanted to do it through our public school system. And that was a quote from the Ford Foundation president in the 1970s.
You know, some states like Florida are now requiring students be taught the truth about Marxism, communism, socialism in the world in the 20th century. It's really important. More than 100 million people paid with their lives for this lie that somehow socialist, communist, Marxist governments are a better model than what we have here in America, which clearly they're not. But like the Great Leap Forward, I talk about that on this program. Nobody knows what it is. They don't teach this anymore. They don't teach this anymore at all, which is incredible. The Great Leap Forward in Mao's China cost 50 million people their lives. If we taught people the truth, they'd have a better idea, wouldn't they?
Oh, yeah, they would. But the whole point was that they wanted to take over the teachers' colleges, and we exposed that in our book, so that all the teachers would be trained in their Marxist ideology, unknowing to them, thinking that they're doing good for their students, and would be, little Marxist indoctrinators inside your classroom, and whether they knew it or not, or whether they thought they were Marxists or not. And so they want to destroy the United States from within, and they saw that our public school system was going to be the best way to do that. You know, a number of them have bought our publishing company. So even if a state of Florida is saying that this is the law, well, if the publishing company is not following along, they're still getting materials in the schoolrooms that undermine our American values. And so it's really important to understand what's actually going on in our government school system.
The co-conspirators can be found in the teachers' unions. I mean, people like Randy Weingarten, that thinks that the World Economic Forum should set the curriculum for our schools. I mean, the unions are part and parcel to this, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. The unions are a big problem. Public unions in general are immoral since they're not actually negotiating with the people paying their salary. And they use that money to 99.9% of it goes to the Democrats to elect more of their friends, to elect this Democrat socialist worldview into our culture. So it is undermining our freedom. It's undermining our faith. And that is the whole intention of the curriculum that's in the government school system, as well as what they're doing to the teachers, so that teachers will undermine the relationship between parents and their students, so that students will think parents and government authorities are more important than the parents that love them.
So homeschooling really has gotten over the hump. Homeschooling has faced the challenges, pushed back by states, pushed back by unions, and prevailed in many places. In fact, now you have states where the money follows the student, which makes sense. If a student wants to go to a private school or be homeschooled, there are more opportunities there today than there have been, well, ever, aren't there?
Yeah, so there are more people homeschooling today than there ever have been in the history of the United States. There's more people going to private schools in the United States now. And so the opportunities are out there for parents. The choices are easier to make than ever before. And it's so important that parents are making an informed choice. And just so you know, homeschooling is not difficult that anymore because the curriculum is written for parents who don't know what they're doing. And organizations like ours at Classical Conversations form communities that meet once a week with a tutor to help your students out. And so there's so many resources out there. There's no reason for your kid to be in a government school system anymore. And quite frankly, I mean, we see only 34% of kids can read at grade level and 40% are being bullied. Like, you got to get your kid out.
You know, it's a remarkable thing that they cannot perform basic reading, math, science. And yet we continue to dump more and more money per student into the government school system that continues to fail. Last word to you.
Yeah, well, that was intentional. That's what we reveal in the book, Woke and Weaponized. They didn't want to create a populace that was thinking and could self-govern. They wanted one that would obey authorities. And so that's how it's designed to act. And that's why we get the results that we get. The public school's not failing. It's wildly successful. And it takes us to taking responsibility of our kids to win it back.
That's right. We raise our kids, not the government. Robert, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Look, we talk about education here a lot because it's very, very important. Make sure you create independent thinkers, critical thinkers. And it's not easy for everybody to homeschool, obviously. It's easier for some than it is for others. Some can't afford private school, depending on what state you're in and whether or not, the money follows the student. But they are important considerations. We fight back against it every day, this indoctrination. This idea that America is bad and socialism is good. We push back every single day because we have to. Somebody has to speak up for truth. That's what we do here. Appreciate you being here. Robert Redfield, Dr. Robert Redfield, will be here with me in a moment. You know him, of course. This is The Steve Gruber Show. All right, well, a guy who's been in jail for the last decade because he would not reveal the location of gold coins he found at a shipwreck has been released now. Has now been released. His name is Tommy Thompson, a deep-sea explorer, spent more than a decade in federal prison because he would not report where the 500 missing gold coins recovered from the SS Central America, the ship of gold. He wouldn't tell him where the gold was. That ship sank in 1857 off the coast of South Carolina. And here's what he told the judge. Your Honor, I don't know if we've gone over this road before or not, but I don't know the whereabouts of the gold. I feel like I don't have the keys to my own freedom. Said he just doesn't remember where it is. 500 gold coins, right? Would be worth a lot today. Remarkable explorer he was. His downfall began long after his 1988 triumph when he used a robotic thresher to recover gold from the Atlantic floor. While the discovery was a feat of engineering, it sparked a series of lawsuits from the investors who funded the expedition, saying they didn't get paid back. In 2012, after being ordered to appear in court and account for the missing coins, which at the time were valued at $2.5 million. He vanished, captured in 2015 by U.S. Marshals at a Florida hotel where he'd been living as a fugitive. Well, they finally locked him up, but the release does not absolve him of the $3.3 million in accumulated fines, nor does it end civil litigation from investors who claim they were defrauded. The long, curious story of Tommy Thompson. Now out, but still not really free. This part of the program brought to you by my good friends at Muskox. The best flannel shirt you're ever going to own is a Muskox, an American company from Detroit. They came out, they built these shirts several years ago, and they've continued to wow the world. Named the #1 flannel shirt by Gear Junkie magazine years and years in a row. Plus, everybody here wears them, especially this time of the year. You know, during winter, during spring when it's cold and rainy, the Muskox, the best shirt you're ever going to own. And if you go to gomuskox.com, you can save $15 on one today. It's an investment, I'll grant you that, but one you're going to be glad you make. And once you get your Muskox, send me an email. Tell me how much you love it. GoMuskox.com. Use the promo code Gruber. All right, my next guest, you know his name, Dr. Robert Redfield. He was in charge of the CDC when the COVID pandemic really took hold in this country back in early 2020. And obviously, there were a lot of things said and things that went back and forth and, you know, some controversy, to say the least, back and forth. Loved by some, opposed by others. And now he's back. from that job. He is a professor emeritus, University of Maryland School of Medicine, currently practices infectious disease at Greater Baltimore Medical Center. And he says, and the reason I have him, end-stage disease should not be the time we start treating people. Not for COVID and not for anything else. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Glad to be here.
Really appreciate it. And we are guilty of this in America. We wait till a disease has taken firm hold of somebody before we react. We saw that with COVID. They would wait till, people would go to the hospital with COVID. You know this. And they'd be told, no, just go home. You're not really sick enough to be here. Then they get really sick and come back in. Many of them died, right? And that's true not just of COVID. That's an easy example, but of other diseases. What is wrong with our approach to disease? Why not more focus on prevention instead of just working on it after the disease has taken hold?
You know, Steve, it's a real problem, and it's really pretty real. The whole system seems to be triggered to take care of illness. I say that we've created, and I've been part of it for more than 40 years, we've created a disease system. We haven't created a health system. And it seems to be the one thing people just don't want to invest in is prevention. We all learned from our grandmothers a long time ago, prevention is worth, much more than anything else, but it just doesn't seem that we've gotten the message. And this is one of the reasons I wrote the op-ed, is to try to highlight. I've been very proud of Secretary Kennedy and what he's trying to do to make America healthy again, focusing on chronic disease. It's really hard to believe that over 50% of Americans have a chronic disease. It's hard to believe that 77% of young people can't pass a military medical exam. It's hard to believe that 30% of kids around the age of 20 have type 2 diabetes. President Trump used to tell me he didn't understand why so many Americans died of COVID. When I was CDC director, we had 1.2 million Americans die, and we had a country like Taiwan that had less than 5,000. He said, Bob, I don't understand. We have a great medical system. Why are so many people dying? I said, it's because we're not healthy. We have chronic disease. And so part of what I wrote about this op-ed in kidney disease, it's a very common phenomenon for those of us that get over the age of 50, probably about 1 in 7 Americans. And the current tendency is to get aggressive with kidney disease once you're ready to go on dialysis. That's the end of the game. Most people don't know that 50% of the people on dialysis will die in 5 years. I don't consider that the end game. And so we need to get much more innovative in our approach to kidney disease. We need to get much more aggressive in promoting the private sector and pharmaceutical development to look for early interventions to reverse kidney disease.
Is that part of it? Let me ask you this, Doctor. You mentioned Secretary Kennedy. And one of the things that he has changed here recently, and I think it was long overdue because I dumped the food pyramid long ago. And you talk about obesity and the damages of obesity, whether it's hypertension or kidney disease or cancer. The amount of disease that follows being overweight is remarkable. And so changing the food pyramid, changing the way we approach health to begin with, that's a good step forward, isn't it?
It's huge. And he's going to see real results, okay? I'm a big advocate of what he's done with food. Did you realize, it's hard to believe that our taxpayers spent $10 billion a year so your grandkids can drink soda when they go to school.
Sugar water.
It's not so they can drink milk. It's so they can drink soda.
And this is remarkable. They just reintroduced whole milk into public schools, right? You saw that, of course. And boy, the criticism of whole milk. Seriously? That's wild to me. What do you say about that?
It's wild. And Kennedy, I was with him recently last week, and I really told him I appreciate his new phrase that he's pushing on this. It's called eat real food. Eat real food, and I think this is going to make a huge difference. As you know, obesity is a big problem in our nation. It has lots of health issues associated with it. You can't see me because we're on the phone, but I've lost in the last 6 months. I've lost 35 pounds,
which is good.
I'm almost back to my Army weight.
which is,
But, being overweight didn't help me with my blood pressure, and it didn't help me with my type 2 diabetes. Now I'm getting, down to my army weight, and it's just, we all should try to get to our ideal body weight. It's a much healthier place to be.
Well, and you mentioned 50% of people in America have some sort of a chronic disease. To me, as Secretary Kennedy pointed out, we are the sickest nation on earth. We've got great health care in America if you have access to it. That's true. Pharmaceuticals and hospitals and clinics. But if you're already a complete mess, like you say, you're an end-stage illness, what's the point of all that? What's the point of all that if you didn't take care of yourself to begin with?
Yeah, we have to shift, and I'm trying to push on this. I'll be writing other op-eds related to this. We have to push that we need to build a health system. Right now, as a doctor, and I still practice medicine, I get paid provided you're sick, right?
Yeah.
I want to get paid for keeping you well.
There's no money in that, doctor, and that's one of the criticisms.
I know, and that's why we have to change the financial incentives and everything. It's so off balance. My hospital gets paid if they get to operate on you. If you're sick, they don't get paid if you don't need an operation. We have to look at how we incentivize health care so that we move to value-based health care towards wellness. And I think Oz and Kennedy will try to push us in that direction. It's going to be complicated, but it definitely needs to be done because we are, as Kennedy said very clearly, sadly, we are probably the sickest nation in the world.
Yeah, well, you've reinforced something that I think is a problem here. Follow the money. Look, there's no money in cheap medication. There's no money in things that don't have patents, right? The big pharmaceutical companies that want to promote new drugs and new wonderful things, but they cost a lot of money. They make a lot of money. Like you said, the hospital makes money when surgeries are performed. When you treat people for chronic illness, there's a lot of cash involved there, isn't there?
Yeah, and when you treat them effectively, so you prevent all the surgeries and all the cardiac catheterizations, that there's revenue changes. This is why you have to change the incentives towards wellness. It's not going to be simple, but it is doable. I mean, I think there are some formulas that could be made that really the Cleveland Clinic has done a really good program that I'm familiar with where when a patient hits 5 targets, weight, blood pressure, A1C for their diabetes, their lipids, they have 5 different targets for them to hit of wellness.
And
when they hit that target,
you're in great shape. Doctor, can you hold through the break and spend a few more minutes with us?
Yes, sure.
Let's do that.
Go ahead.
Dr. Robert Redfield
break.
here. Yeah, Dr. Robert Redfield here with us. Look, there's no money in being healthy, but there's a lot of value to you. That's for sure. Lose weight, feel great. It's all here for you. I'm going to take a break and be right back with Dr. Robert Redfield right here on The Steve Gruber Show. All right, back with Dr. Robert Redfield. Let me ask you about this, Doctor. You said you lost 35 pounds in the last few months. Congratulations on that. It's important. You control so many things, and you just feel better, that's for sure. How'd you do it?
Well, I obviously started watching what I ate, but I did because of I do have type 2 diabetes, unfortunately, and my doctors did change my medications to one of those GLP-1 drugs, Mounjaro. And, that drug is it's exceptional. I mean, it does change your interest in eating. It changes your interest in drinking. There's a lot more to these drugs than meets the eye. The only problem with them, as you commented earlier, is just they're not affordable, and they need to be made affordable. And but they really did help me lose weight. And then once you get back to where you need to be, you've learned how to change your eating habits. The other thing I've taken quite seriously is Secretary Kennedy's message about not eating processed foods, eating real food. There's a study that was done. If you go into a metabolic unit and you eat processed food versus non-processed food, the same food, same calories, same exercise, same everything else, one group at the end of the month has gained a bunch of weight and the other group hasn't gained any weight. So there's a lot of truth to what Kennedy's saying about these processed foods causing, they may help shelf life, for groceries stores and stuff like that, but they're not helping your body. So we need to move back to eating real food, healthy food. As you said, can you believe it's controversial that we decided to give milk to kids in school?
Isn't that remarkable? Yeah, that's right. And I've advised people for 15 years on this program, so that I predate the change in the food pyramid. If you want to eat properly, you stay to the outside of a grocery store. You go to the dairy department, the meat department, the bakery, the fresh fruits and vegetables. When you start to wander toward the middle of the store, that's where you find things that look like food and smell like food and taste like food, but really aren't food. These highly processed things. So stick to the outside walls. You're going to be a lot better off. I'd be remiss, Doctor.
It's true.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you in retrospect now, 2026, looking back. You were in charge of the CDC early 2020, like I said. 1.2 million people, according to the CDC, died from COVID. Not as deadly as the Spanish flu. It would have been about double that if we'd had the same mortality rate, but still very serious. And going back, what would you do differently?
Oh, there was a lot of mistakes made for sure. First is that we didn't appreciate initially. The Chinese had told us that this was no asymptomatic illness and no human-to-human transmission. Well, that's not true. It's probably one of the most infectious viruses we have with human-to-human transmission, probably right behind measles. And the reality is asymptomatic infection is the rule. So our whole public health approach towards looking for sick people and then contact tracing around them was flawed. We learned that when the Diamond Princess happened in Japan, and Japan invited us in, and we found out that half the people on the ship were infected with no symptoms. I would have never, and I fought against it, closed schools. It was a big mistake. I would have never shut down businesses. Big mistake. I wouldn't have had any mandates, even though that really came with the Biden administration. No mandates for the vaccine. Big mistake. This vaccine doesn't prevent infection. No rational reason to mandate it. So these are very serious mistakes that were made. And really have had long-term consequences. Many people don't realize that the loss of learning that happened to these kids, the loss of income and businesses that happened. I was more with Vice President Mike Pence, I was close to, and Mike had a view that we should take a knee, and that was like you do in a football game or in a sporting event. Take a knee for a week or two and figure out how we can continue all these activities in a safe and responsible way and go ahead and continue them. Unfortunately, we didn't rule the day. I lost the argument about schools, and the schools were largely shut. And I did.
Yeah, that's generational damage.
I know. I did win in Baltimore, and the Archbishop gave me a nice award because I argued along his side to keep the Catholic schools open, despite what the public system wanted to do, and we were able to keep them open. Those kids did better on the tests than they ever did in their life. In history, and the public schools did worse on the standardized tests.
So let me ask you this:
mistake.
Yeah, lots of mistakes, and I appreciate you being so blunt and straight about that. Let me ask you this. Is there any need at this point? Would you recommend for anyone to get the COVID vaccine going forward? They still offer that thing. I would not get it myself personally, certainly. But what is your feeling on the vaccine? We've got about a minute left.
Yeah, so I don't recommend the mRNA vaccines for anybody. I think we don't know enough about the long-term consequences of them. Even though I helped develop them with Warp Speed, and they did save lives of people at risk for death, the reality is I don't recommend them. For those people at risk for death, that's those of us that are over 65, 70, 75 that have comorbidities like diabetes and hypertension, I still recommend the protein vaccine. The problem, if you're going to get this vaccine, it's non-durable, so you really need to take it about every 4 to 6 months. But I don't recommend the mRNA vaccines at all, and I don't recommend people under 65 get vaccinated. I agree with the new CDC recommendations to use this vaccine in the vulnerable over 65, even though, you know, they're getting beat up right and left by, I mean, they're being sued by the AMA, they're being sued by the American Pediatric, they're being sued by, you know, Infectious Disease Society of America, because none of these societies want to admit they made a mistake. They made a mistake. This vaccine should not be mandated. It really doesn't.
All the
prevent
mandates
infection.
were bad. Yeah, all the mandates because
they were bad.
They
All of
were.
them.
Yeah, Doctor, really appreciate you being here, because the one thing that the number that nobody, and I've asked about this and nobody has this number, how many kids that were in high school, for example, when they closed the schools, dropped out and never came back? I mean, the damage to our society generationally has not been measured properly. Doctor, I really appreciate you being here. I wish we had a bit more time, but that'll do it for today, sir. Thank you. It's been an honor.
All right, Steve. Thanks a lot. God bless. Yep.
God
Bye-bye.
bless you. Thank you. Appreciate it. He's right about all the mandates. Do not close schools. Do not mandate the mRNA injection. He's right about all of that. Boy, he got blackballed for a lot of that too, didn't he? Interesting conversation, to say the least. Glad we had to have it for you. Glad we had a chance to share that with you this morning. I'll take a break and be back with Brock in sports. It's almost March Madness time, folks. Get bracketized after this. Oh, Lord. You ready? Let's do sports with Brock.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. 3 more bids to the NCAA men's basketball tournament went out last night. Idaho won the Big Sky tournament, Lehigh took the Patriot League tourney, and McNeese won the Southland Conference tournament. On the women's side, just 1 bid went out. Idaho won the Big Sky tourney. At the World Baseball Classic, Italy crushed Mexico 9-1 in Houston, and with that win, the United States clinched a spot in the quarterfinals. Kansas City Royals infielder Vinny Pasquantino hit 3 home runs for the Italians. The U.S. will play Canada in the quarterfinals tomorrow night in Houston. There were 6 games in the NBA last night. Winners included New York, Orlando, Denver, and the L.A. Clippers. And in the NHL, there were only 2 games. Montreal beat Ottawa, and Philadelphia got past Washington 4-1. And in Major League Baseball, spring training winners included Atlanta, Baltimore, Minnesota, and Washington. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, thank you for that. So my Bobcats of Montana State did not win the Big Sky tournament. I guess they're a football school.
No, they didn't. It was the Vandals of Idaho.
Vandals, which I always thought was a funny name when I went to college out there. The Vandals. What are they, smashing my windows? Yeah, anyhow. My co-host here wants to know about bracketology, but we're not quite there yet. When does the Big Ten tournament wrap up?
Sunday afternoon, and then the brackets are announced on Sunday night, 6 o'clock, I believe.
There you go. All right, so the brackets, Duke and Michigan. Who else in the top 4?
Arizona, probably Florida or Connecticut. Those are your number 1 seeds, more than likely.
They're the 5. All right. So, and you're putting your money. You're sticking with Arizona.
I'm sticking with Arizona.
All right. I'm going to go with Dusty May. Why not? Look,
There's people picking Michigan to win it all.
Well, yeah. Look, it doesn't. There's 5 really good teams there you named. Any one of those teams could win because on any given night,
could win too. Iowa State's really good.
You know, it'd be interesting to see a Duke-Michigan rematch. That'd be interesting to me. Hopefully they're on opposite sides. Anyhow, Brock, thank you for that. Little kitty, always appreciate your input. Can you do that somewhere else? Hey, the things I deal with in the studio some days. Mascot cat. Hi, bud. I've got a lot more straight ahead. One more big hour of the program today. Me, the cat, you. It's all here. I'll be back.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
All right, welcome to as we kick off another brand new hour here fighting for you from this foxhole of freedom that we take so seriously, making America first on our list of priorities, all right? Glad to have you here. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, fraud taking another bite out of Michigan's food assistance program. This story being repeated all over the country day after day. Number two, Northern Michigan lawmakers are thanking President Trump for releasing more funds in response to that devastating ice storm just about a year ago now. Remarkable ice storm. FEMA's closed, strangling the money. And number three, the Epstein files. The Epstein files. More testimony behind closed doors yesterday as another deposition is taken. As James Comer and the Oversight Committee continue to dig through the Epstein files, millions of documents now. But here's something that's become a common theme, and I think it's important for you to know. Time and again, Donald Trump is exonerated. Every witness that comes through says, never saw that, never saw him do anything wrong. The Democrats have clutched to this so hard and so long, just praying that they can find something. Of course, they had the documents for years, first in the Obama administrations and then in Joe Biden's one term. They had documents for years and years and years and did nothing with it. And in fact, here's the latest. Here's the update from the Epstein files. Listen to this.
He confirmed there were 5 clients that paid money to Epstein, and that was Les Wexner, Glenn Dubin, Stephen Sinofsky, the Rothschilds, and Leon Black. We've already deposed Wexner, and we're going to be deposing Leon Black very soon. Mr. Khan testified under oath that, because the Democrats asked this question, that he had never seen any type of transaction to Trump or anyone in his family. That makes the 5th witness now that's testified under oath that they've never seen any involvement by Donald Trump or their family. That includes Khan, Bill Clinton, Wexner, Acosta, and Barr. So I know that's the obsession of a lot of the media with respect to the Epstein investigation, but I will again remind you, the investigation's about getting the truth to the American people, trying to figure out how the government failed, answer questions we all have. Was he an agent? Was our government involved in any type of cover-up in any way, shape, or form? And, finally, what can be done to prevent this from happening in the future?
Yeah. Les Wexner from Columbus, Ohio, New Albany, if you want to be more specific, owns Victoria's Secret and Abercrombie & Fitch. Apparently close ties to Jeffrey Epstein. The Rothschilds. Close ties to Jeffrey Epstein, but not Donald Trump. These are important facts to understand as the Democrats continue to pray that something will come through there. Meanwhile, the SAVE Act is a number one priority for the President of the United States, but the votes just are not there yet. But they will be, I predict. Some revelations are going to come out that will get some votes moved, because what it will show is foreign interference on elections, not from Russia. Foreign interference on our elections from a foreign power, not Russia, that infiltrated state databases, created identities of people that didn't even exist, created driver's licenses for those people that didn't even exist, and then created mass mail-in ballots for those people that did not exist. Meanwhile, John Thune started yelling at Democrats for refusing to fund DHS on the Senate floor yesterday. He does have a spine, apparently. Listen.
Usually around here, in order to get a deal, there has to be a negotiation where the two sides sit down together. And my understanding is that has been completely rebuffed by the senator from Washington. And so we are here today, and we are trying to close a deal that would enable us to fund all the agencies that the Democrats say they want funded with reforms to ICE. And I've seen the offer sheet from the White House, and they have gone a lot farther than any Democrat I think was even possible. And so we have a situation here, Mr. President, where one side is trying to get a deal to open up the government, to get people back to work, to fund the programs and functions that are important to the national security of our country. And we have one side that's saying, we're not going to sit down and talk. I don't know how you defend that, honestly. I mean, this is a one-sided negotiation in which the White House has put forward a proposal. Senate Republicans have said repeatedly, we are prepared to sit down and talk with Senate Democrats, and Senate Democrats, and my understanding is the senator from Washington has said, sorry, we're not ready to talk.
Not ready to talk, and there it is. And DHS remains closed, which means your TSA agents are not being paid at a critical time. The Coast Guard is not being paid. FEMA not being funded. This is important because as it's tornado season, we've already seen devastating tornadoes in a number of places here in the country. This slows down FEMA, prevents money from coming in, but Michigan Republicans are thanking Donald Trump for releasing additional money for the ice storm that's been almost a year now. They're still cleaning up from that mess. But tornado survivors from this spring are being pinched and punished because of this. Listen.
He said, Annabelle, there's a tornado coming. And she said, what should we do? And I said, hold on a second. I think it's turning to go the other way. And I said, no, it's coming at us. I said, we should run to your brother's house and get in his basement. I grabbed a bunch of pillows and blankets, and I just kind of huddled over them. And it wasn't, I can't say it was that loud, but I knew it was bad when I seen the water come underneath the bathroom door.
Knew it was bad. Those people are being ignored because DHS is not being funded to try to punish ICE, which is funded through 2029, and Customs and Border Patrol, which is funded through 2029. Who exactly are the Democrats trying to punish here? That guy who just lost everything to a tornado? They're trying to punish lawmakers? Trying to use that guy as a pawn to get more votes in November? It's shameful. Absolutely shameful. Fund DHS. This is not how politics is supposed to work. You don't punish hardworking people and withhold their paychecks to prove a political point. They have nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about March Madness and gambling. Do you have a problem? Anthony, you have a problem?
I can stop anytime I want.
There you have it. Anthony can stop anytime he wants. We'll talk about it after the break. I've got my problems. Gambling is not one of them, thankfully. You know, we've all got our challenges. Gambling's not an issue. I'm not a gambler. I've been to Vegas a few times in my life, always for business, never. Well, once for a concert. Went and saw the Eagles last year. Boy, were they great. At the Sphere. That was a remarkable concert. But as we get into March Madness here, a lot of people gambling, of course. Some of it's innocent enough, you know, pools at the place of business. But others, well, they get a little more tangled up, and it can be a problem for sure. Carly Abramson is from the Health Policy Research Associate at Citizens Research Council of Michigan. Carly, good morning.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So a little bit of innocent, get a square or fill out your brackets. Lots of people do that at work this time of the year. And then they watch games and skip school. And, just stand in the bar watching the games at noon on Thursday and Friday. Yeah, well, that happens. All right, got it. And that's all fine and well. But some people really get tangled up in this, and they'll bet the house, literally. This time I'm going to win. Problem gambling can be serious, can it?
Very. And so, this has been legal now in the state of Michigan for about 6 years, since 2019. And since then, the growth in this industry has been enormous.
What's been legal?
So the legalization of online sports betting in particular in Michigan. And so previously, before 2019, there was a federal law basically that prohibited states from legalizing online gambling. That was struck down by the Supreme Court. And since then, many, many states, I think about 42 states, have then legalized online gambling and online sports betting in particular.
And you say in Michigan, it's a multi-billion-dollar, with a B, multi-billion-dollar industry, just in Michigan.
Just in Michigan, too. I mean, it is across the nation, I think it's about 150 billion per year nationally, about 5 billion in Michigan. So the volume of sports bets is very, very high. The profits are very high. And then there's an associated revenue increase because the profits are taxed. And so it is a very lucrative industry, and it has become very pervasive in the general culture as well.
And the Michigan Lottery got in on it, of course. I know they have an app out there, does the Michigan Lottery. So they said, hey, we're on the bandwagon too. But tell me what happens to a problem gambler. Give me an example of where things can go terribly wrong.
Sure. And so while most people do engage in this pretty responsibly, for that subsection of people, it can lead to very serious problems, not only for them as an individual, but the ramifications to their communities, their families, and then, the rest of the state. Gambling addiction functions very much like other addictions in terms of what happens in the brain and that dopamine feedback loop. And so what happens is we have seen the financial impact of how ubiquitous and how easily accessible these online sports betting apps are for people. And so this can lead to, data shows increases in larceny and bankruptcy, decreasing credit scores, and then it has ripple effects on the community in community violence, intimate partner violence. We see an increase in harassment of athletes. So it has all these potential impacts that, a lot of them we are, under this public health umbrella, not just because of the addiction behavior, but because of the impacts on the rest of the community. And so it's because it is growing so rapidly, those corresponding public health problems are also growing right along with it.
Here is a remarkable couple of statistics that you shared with us before you came on today, and I find these jaw-dropping. 1 in 5 Americans has a sports betting app on their phone or their computer. 1 in 5. Half of the people, men specifically, 18 to 49, half have sports betting apps on their phone. I find that shocking.
It is so popular, and you can see probably I'm not plugged into the sports world, but it is still so apparent in the culture that my awareness of online betting and online sports, you kind of can't escape it. It has, it's partnered with the sports industry. The advertising for it is everywhere. And because of how easy it is to access, it really kind of lures people in very easily. It's not like how it used to be, where to place a bet, you had to leave the house and go find somebody and, do, an interaction. There were other kind of natural barriers in place. It's so easy on the phone to just get involved, to kind of, start with a free bet. And, there's lots of little things that reduce those roadblocks to getting in, and then potentially for the people who are most vulnerable, getting in a little bit too deep.
Yeah, and if you didn't pay your bill in years gone by, then Knuckles the Clown would show up and make sure you paid the money you owed. Now, it just goes into your bank account or whatever, right? And people blow the mortgage. They blow the car payment. As you pointed out, they blow up their families. So what can we do to help these folks that have gotten in too deep?
Right. And so it's not, like I said, most people engage in this very responsibly. This is not, I don't think we need to come at this from, this is a thing that we shouldn't be doing. However, there are kind of little things that other states are doing just to try to add a few of those roadblocks back in, potentially limiting what's known as prop bets. So this idea that you can kind of bet on not just the result of a game, but just individual events happening within a game. And those offer just an endless number of potential bets. So if you start, you can just keep going and keep going. There's AI recommendations that will be like, why don't you, try this bet? Here are the odds for this. And so it really lures people in. And so some states have limited that. Other states have limited how much you can bet with borrowed money or banning the use of credit cards for it. And then there's a separate area of state activity about offering more resources and protections for those who suffer from gambling addiction, and trying to make those resources more available. And so if we are raising this revenue, and if we are raising this revenue, then perhaps some of that could be allocated for those who are going to suffer inevitably because of
problem
this.
gamblers. Vegas will bet on anything, Carly, anything. I was in northern Michigan a few months ago. I saw pig races on TV. I said, you got to be kidding me. Pig races. It's all true. They'll bet on anything. I got to leave it there, folks. Bet responsibly. Don't blow the house payment, please. Carly, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Greatly appreciate it. Yeah, pig racing. I swear it was very entertaining. I don't bet. Not really my thing, but it was fun to watch. But Vegas will bet on anything. Yeah, look at ESPN 2. You'll see what I mean. All right, we'll take a break and be right back. It is The Steve Gruber Show. If you could take a blood test and show whether or not you are vulnerable to dementia, would you do it? Would you? Because I would. I'd probably forget to do the test, but I would try to remember. A new blood test could determine a woman's dementia risk as early as 25 years before symptoms emerge. 25 years. That, according to new research at UC San Diego, found a specific biomarker. Listen to this. It's a protein associated with early pathological processes of Alzheimer's disease, strongly linked to future dementia risk. The researchers analyzed blood samples from 2,766 participants in the Women's Health Initiative Memory Study in the late 1990s, according to the study's press release. Women ranged in age from 25 to 79 years. Why do you say the 1990s? Because it took 25 years for them to get the study results, obviously. After tracking the participants for 25 years, the researchers concluded that the biomarker, tau 217, it's a protein, was strongly associated with future mild cognitive impairment and dementia. Women who had higher levels at the beginning of the study were much more likely to develop the disease. The findings were published today in the Journal of the American Medical Association Network Open. So, ladies, if you could take a test and see if you had p-tau 217, what would you do about it? That's the next step. What would you do about it? Would you take the test? I would. Are you tired of hard water ruining your appliances, staining your sinks, drying out your skin? Well, at Wolverine Water Systems, they've been delivering pure, clean, great-tasting Michigan water for 75 years. Michigan families getting the very best. Whether it's well water or city water, the American-made water softeners and filtration systems are custom-built to fix your water problems today. Visit WolverineWaterSystems.com for a free in-home water test. WolverineWaterSystems.com. I've been using Wolverine products for 25 years or more now. I mean, forever. Long before I did this program. I trust Wolverine. Why? They're my friends and neighbors. They work here in the state. Pure, clean water. WolverineWaterSystems.com. I am a true believer. That's a fact for all the products I talk about in this program. But Wolverine, probably, I've been using the longest of any product in this program. Get a hold of my good friend Paul Mahaney and his team at Wolverine Water Systems. Again, that's WolverineWaterSystems.com. You'll be glad you did. I'll be back after this. All right, this is a topic that affects all of us. That is the cost of paying your power bill, right? And it's also a concern when a storm rolls through and you don't have power for a day or two or three because the grid is fragile in some places. Well, these are all things that my next guest, State Representative Steve Frisbee from Michigan 44, in the 44th House District is addressing. Steve, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so this was remarkable to me. I've been talking about it for a few days. Indiana is lowering electric bills because of smart policies and saying, look, to the regulators and so forth, do not let the Indiana-Michigan Power Company continue to drill the consumer. I mean, how many times do we see rates increase from consumers and DTE in this state? And as soon as they get a rate increase, they're right back at the table asking for another one. People are just getting pounded here, sir. What can we do about it?
Well, there's several things. And one of the things that our bill package yesterday introduced by the Energy Chair, Pauline Wenzel, Rep., is to remove unnecessary cost and repeal the 23 law that tried to go green. And all it did was add cost, decrease reliability, and put us on a pathway of being some of the highest energy cost in the nation. So we don't want to be there. We want to be down, teamed up with Indiana doing the right thing. And bad policy is bad policy. And that's what the 23 amounted to when they put in their Green New Deal version here in Michigan.
Yeah, we are also surrounded by Ontario to the north. I hope they're not fixing to invade. They got rid of all their coal-fired power plants over the last few years. Their rates have gone through the roof. And so I think when you're talking about this 2023 law, you're talking about this idea of going 100% renewable by 2040. That is a fool's errand that is going to be destructive to Michigan's economy, to ratepayers, and to reliability for energy. We said it then, I say it again now. Is that what you're trying to get rid of?
Absolutely. And I said in 23, when they passed it, there's no way we can achieve that without adding substantial cost and decreased reliability. So we've tried to replace good generation with wind and solar. It's not as reliable, obviously. It's not as productive as the other sources. So it's about 1/10 of normal sources in production. So you have to cover a whole countryside with solar panels and wind towers. It just won't work.
And if you missed the videos here recently of these storms that went through a couple of days ago, I think it was in Illinois maybe, I saw an entire solar panel farm destroyed by hail and tornadoes, totally destroyed, which, by the way, they have cadmium, they have lead. These panels create a toxic environment for the earth after they're all broken up, and there's no efficient way to clean them. And so when I hear insane proposals like let's bulldoze state forest and put in solar panels, which was proposed by the DNR here not that long ago, that is insane, isn't it?
Yeah, we were able to put an end to that through public outcry. So, yeah, we have to, and there's other things affecting the bills now that, we found out that, several $1 million are going to fund political groups that are promoting this green energy stuff out of your bills.
Wait. My electric bill that I pay to pick your poison, whether it's DTE or consumers or whoever, I'm funding political activity with that?
Yeah, but I don't think that's DTE and Consumers Energy's fault. I think they're beholden to the policy. Often people get mad at DTE and consumers. I get that. That's who their bill's coming from. But they're a business that's been chasing policy that's put forth not only from the state of Michigan, but then you had things going on at the federal level during the Biden administration that they had to be cognizant of as well. So, but these things, all of a sudden, we find out that several $1 million are funding promotion of green energy coming out of your bill. And it's other things, like switching to, all different high efficiency bulbs and things like that. You're paying for those when you pay your energy bill. So we've got to get them focused. And one of the things we want to do with this bill is mandate that MPSC look at two things when they set energy rates, and that in policy or direction forward. That is it efficient and is it effective and cost effective? So look at the consumer, not, a policy. We want reliable, clean energy here for the state of Michigan. and our residents and drive those costs down.
Yeah, my complaint with the power companies, and not just here, Indiana, Michigan Power there in Indiana, these are monopolies. Call them whatever you want. They are monopolies. I don't have a choice where I buy my electricity. I have one option. No matter where I live, I have one option. That's the way that is. The future, though, looks different. I will give Governor Whitmer credit for the Palisades nuclear plant being brought back online. It's running a bit behind schedule, but it is in line to do that. Modular nuclear is now becoming a reality in some places. I think it has to be a reality here as well. Look, these data centers can create their own power plants. That's what Donald Trump just said in Washington. We're not going to punish the consumer because you have a data center that's taking up large amounts of electricity, right? These are other important steps.
Yeah. The small mobile reactors is a great idea. I've been promoting them for well over a year now. I think we have perfect opportunity in Michigan in that we have 3 active military bases that we could put them on. As a matter of fact, the feds, just took a small mobile reactor from the LA area out to Utah, and they're going to install it in as little as 12 weeks, and they're going to power 5,000 homes, the equivalent of 5,000 homes on a base in Utah. So there's a way to get this done that creates reliability without adding a ton of cost. So we just have to have better policy, and that's what we will do. We'll repeal the 23 laws and install a well-rounded, well-thought-out energy policy that thinks about the cost and reliability for the consumer.
Let me ask you this, Steve. Politics is politics. Governor Whitmer signed that 23 legislation into law. You wouldn't expect her to sign a repeal of that law, would you?
Funnier things have happened. We didn't expect a road bill. I think Governor Whitmer is very good at trying to accomplish some things. And she's worked well with Speaker Hall to get some things done. Heck, she's been working with President Trump to get some things done. So I think there's an opportunity. Will it get through the Senate is where I think it gets held up. But let them own that, because what would happen is citizens in this country or in this state are going to say, no, we have an opportunity to fix this and head in a different direction. We'll make sure we do that at the ballot box. But maybe they'll come to their senses.
There you go. Steve Frisbee, appreciate this. This is the right thing to do. Protect the consumer, strengthen the grid, lower prices, be like Indiana. I won't say that often, but I'll say it today. Sir, thank you for being here.
Have a great day.
Really appreciate it. There you have it. We can do better, but we have to get rid of bad policies. Would Governor Whitmer sign that? He seems to be pretty optimistic about that. Maybe he's right. Look, admit when you make a mistake. Move on. Do it better. Ivy after the break. All right, let's dive into the best part of the day. It's dessert time here on the program with
my.
Ivy. Good morning, Ivy.
Good morning.
What?
Okay. Could describe myself like that, I guess.
Yeah.
Kinda
Cherry on
awkward.
top, little bow. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
What's
Would
up?
you describe me like that, Steve?
I have descriptions for you, Anthony, but it is a family program.
Wow. Thank you, Steve. That's very kind.
All right, what do you got in your
Well, I
bag
know
of
you've been
tricks?
talking a little bit today about our incredibly important conversation yesterday on our podcast with Alvin Louie.
Yeah.
Who is the founder and president of Courage is a Habit, which is a nonprofit organization focused on equipping parents, teachers, and legislators with tools to challenge ideological activism and political indoctrination in K through 12 schools.
Yeah.
I think this is probably one of the most important conversations I've had in quite some time. Incredibly enlightening, and I'm really excited for everyone to hear it.
You want a sample?
But if you have it, let's do it.
Let's talk about restorative justice. And what does that mean in the schools today, Anthony?
So, in restorative justice, it says if a the perpetrator beats the victim, instead of the discipline going to the perpetrator, they both now have to sit down, and the victim now has to also understand why he did what he did. So if a trans child, if a boy who pretends to be a girl beats the brakes out of a girl, of course the school will tell the boy, hey, you can't do that. You can't be violent. Apologize. Boy goes, okay, sorry. And then the female that's gotten her nose broken in and the brakes break out of her, you also have to understand why he did that. Because as a trans child, he is marginalized. He doesn't feel accepted. This is why we need anti-bullying, be kind, and social emotional learning. So now she has to, through her black eye, understand his perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's restorative justice. Now, that begins in elementary school, and this is how it begins in elementary school.
Ugh.
Unbelievable, right?
Restorative justice.
You have
got
to
you
have
just got
empathy
clocked.
for the person who beat you up.
Right. You just got punched in the face by a violent fellow student. But you have to have empathy for them because they've got it tough. They're marginalized. Da, 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 da. Stop it.
Well, it's a victimhood mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, as we went through this conversation, things really the light bulbs started turning on because as I recall conversations with our oldest daughter who's now in college and way out of high school, it's like, oh, that's where these emotional, everything has to be so placed on how you feel and the feelings of others. And so social emotional learning, what we didn't talk about in K through 12 schools is what the fundamentals should be, which is reading, writing, and arithmetic. That is not what's happening in schools.
No.
It is social and emotional learning, and everything is taken from that point of view through that lens and then taught all of the other material.
Yeah.
And this is not, and one of the things that I found most profound is that no school in America is
immune to this.
Is immune to this.
Yeah.
Because this is through funding. You have to provide paperwork and how your social and emotional learning is happening in your school.
So on and so forth. In fact, Alvin told us he moved from California to get away from their school system, moved to Indiana.
Yep.
No state's more red, more conservative than Indiana. And he said everything's great about Indiana except the school system because it's just the same, teaching the same garbage.
And it's the same everywhere. Actually, I'm thinking about our local community here, and every year there's a big Be Kind, event that goes on. Be Kind is all over the schools. There's a group and community and everything else. And so you, as a parent, you think, oh, this is great. We're teaching our kids to be kind to one another. Mm-hmm. But that's actually not what's happening. What we're teaching our kids in those sorts of things is how to be tolerant of things that we should not be tolerating.
Yeah.
And I think when we release this episode on Monday, and we're going to put a bunch of resources on our social media pages for parents to be able to, opt your kids out of. Every student gets met with a guidance counselor, which is also...
He said very dangerous. He said it's the one place in the school where somebody can have one-on-one time with your child.
Right.
So if your child is questioning their gender, for example, they're in that room and that counselor can say and do and promote anything they want without guardrails.
Right. And especially they're focused on mental health. And this is where the mental health is the Trojan horse in schools, because that is where they have all the power.
And the access.
To your kids. And a lot of the time they don't have to reveal these conversations
Right.
unless you're opting out of them. And there's a way to do that.
Yeah, there's a form. He said every parent should send this form. You are not allowed to have one-on-one time with my kid to talk about mental health or your emotions or whatever else. I think, and we're doing that today.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing too is you have to protect your kindness and your empathy, because a lot of the time the way that these social ideologies in school take root is because as a parent you're thinking, well, this is just good, we're teaching kids how to be kind and be good to one another, and I don't want to push back against the school because I'm afraid that my kids are going to be retaliated on, and it's just the truth is we have to stand firm in our principles and our beliefs and be able to stand for truth. And in order to do that, you have to be bold, and you can't be empathetic about every single thing. Yes, if someone is having a mental health crisis in school, of course they need to get help through their parents, consulting their parents and things like that. But go ahead.
The term is toxic empathy. You have to be empathetic to everything, because if you're not, you're a bad person.
Right.
And this restorative justice nonsense. It's a great conversation. Alvin Louie. It's going to drop 9 o'clock Monday morning. One of the most impactful conversations you and I have had on Forgotten America, the new podcast, I think, so far, Ivy. It's really good stuff.
Yeah.
We will have the resources there for you. Ivy, love you.
I love you too. Be bold, be strong.
Absolutely.
Keep the faith.
Keep the faith. Go to YouTube, become a subscriber. It's right there. YouTube, become a subscriber today and get all of this and so much more. Look up Steve Gruber. All right, let me brace you for the shock that is coming, even though there's no justification for it. Gas is going to $4 a gallon, and it's going to happen, even though there's no supply and demand mathematical reason for that. We have 1.4 billion barrels of oil in reserve on the planet today. Gas reserves are massive on the planet today. The amount of oil flowing out of the Middle East is about 20% that comes through the Strait of Hormuz. That has been basically stopped for now. As Lloyd's of London pulled their insurance policies, as people are fearful that Iran is somehow getting mines into the water, although I think the last time I checked, 50 Iranian warships had been sunk, including pretty much all of the ships that have the capability of laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz have been sunk. So what is this? Why is this happening? This is a money grab. The oil companies will post, mark my words, record profits for March. Record profits, which could fuel record profits for the quarter, because they're operating on speculation, future pricing, and so forth. And so you are going to pay $4 a gallon. It's also a way for some of these people to hurt Donald Trump if they can. Oil back to $93 a barrel today. Again, there really isn't any reason for this. We have great supplies of oil, great supplies of gasoline. And look, we're about 7 million barrels a day short in America of what we need. We produce about 13 million. We need about 20 million, right? That's how much energy we use. Well, here's a news flash for you. When Venezuela gets up to full production, they'll produce about 3.5 million barrels. Iran at full production produces about 4 million barrels. Problem solved. There's 7 million barrels. And plus, as we continue to frack and develop more energy resources here in America, that also helps solve the problem. We will never need the Middle East again. That's my hope for the future. Never rely on the countries of the Middle East for our power and our energy ever again. That's the hope. Fight the good fight and keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show. And remember, my friends, only you can save America.